Now.
Yeah. He's recording now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're excited to have you all here. Sorry that we are doing the show on the 5th after I've said 1,000 times we'll do the show on the 12th and also the 19th. We are still sticking with the 19th. But there was just a mix up in date. But here's the good news. Chef Tom and Chef Steve were so accommodating. They are here today. We are going to do a catfish of some sort and a bread of some sort. There is a lot that's happening today with the culinary ministry, some super exciting things that they're doing with the gala. I'll allow Chef Tom to talk about that. But thank you for those who are joining. I see people are coming in the waiting room. So we thank you for your flexibility. We apologize about us being a week early, but we are excited that you all are here nonetheless, and it is going to be a good show. I do want to tell everyone that it will be a condensed show. The quality, the energy is still going to be the same. It will just be a condensed show, again, because we have a lot of things that the culinary ministry is doing currently. There's several different shows happening and different things that's happening today, right now, as we speak. So you'll get the same quality, same energy, the same two fabulous chefs. It's just a condensed show. Over to you, Chef Steve. Or Tom.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Hey, welcome everybody to Live from the Chef's Apprentice. I'm Chef Tom, this is Chef Steve, and today we're going to be talking about some Native American cuisine. We're really excited. We spent a good bit of time doing some research. I want to ask if the camera crew can do a little bit of a close-up of our ingredient table. You can do a zoom in on that. So we have all different kinds of things. And most of the stuff I got at a grocery store or two in the area. But we have ground cornmeal. So Native Americans were very big on the three sisters. Chef Steve's going to talk a little bit about that. Corn, bean, and squash. So I have a couple of varieties of squash here. I have some what's called Indian corn, some beans. Hemp was also a big deal back in the day, and nuts. Acorns, believe it or not, is a big thing. So I've never eaten acorns, but evidently you can eat acorns. It's very good for you. So we're one of the things we're going to do today is make an acorn bread, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is a squash that we're going to do that we roasted off, that you can find at Acorns, that is actually was developed by Cherokee Indians, but all kinds of stuff up here. But first, before we start on any recipes, I want to say thank you to Chef Autumn, Patty, and the Culinary 3 students for allowing us to kind of step into their kitchen. Today is the gala that's going on. We actually have some students. We're sharing space with some of the students as we speak. They're working on their products for tonight's curbside pickup gala. The menu sounds fantastic. There are 9 courses. Chef Patty gave me a copy of the menu. They're all around a movie theme. And if you participated and purchased your curbside gala, there's a QR code at the bottom of the menu that'll take you to YouTube clips of all the movies, so that you can actually, while you're partaking in course 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can kind of jump on and get the real feel of what's going on. So they did an outstanding job. I've seen some of the products in the back. Everybody, you guys are going to be excited for what you get. So we're very, very proud of them. So Native American food. It's amazing when we did our research what master gardeners the Native Americans were. They lived off the land. They were the hunters, the gatherers. They're the first paleo diet. And they actually developed a lot of the things that we eat today that we take for granted. So they were some different squash varieties. The corn went all different kinds of directions. Did you know, Chef Steve, that they served popcorn at the first Thanksgiving?
I did not know that.
It's true. The Native Americans actually introduced that to the Pilgrims. So,
Okay.
So if you want to have popcorn on your Thanksgiving table, it would be okay. So our first dish today, we're going to do, everybody I'm sure has heard of succotash. So succotash interpreted is a stew of corn is what it comes down to. And most people probably remember succotash as the diner type corn and lima beans in a side dish. And that's what you got. And sometimes it was nice and sometimes it wasn't very nice because it might sit on the steam table. But succotash is actually a very versatile dish. It can be an entree, it can be a side dish. You can add a protein to it. You can do all kinds of things with it. So the one we're going to do today is a southern succotash that has a couple different twists on it, but it all originated with Native American food. I'm going to fire up my skillet here. And once I get this hot, I'm going to melt just a little bit of butter, start caramelizing some of my onions, and I'm going to throw some andouille sausage in here. Now, if you don't like to do the sausage, you could do andouille. Andouille is a New Orleans style sausage that's a little spicy. Everybody see what I'm doing? I want to do a shout out to the IT department. They make us look so good. They know we work very hard on our classes, but today they unveiled a new camera so that you can actually see what we're doing as we're preparing it. So shout out to the IT department for being proud of their profession and wanted to keep adding on and doing more. So a little bit of whole butter. If you don't like butter, oil's okay. Gonna get that hot and get that started. So I don't mind lima beans. I like them. I like the baby limas a little better than I like the Ford hook. The Ford hook are kind of the bigger version. And they're all groups of what's called shell beans. I prefer edamame over a lima bean. So if you don't know what edamame is, it's actually a shelled soybean. Okay, they're delicious. They're just a little more versatile, and they're also a little more trendy. So we're going to get that going. So my sausage is already cooked because it's a cooked product. It's what I could get in the grocery store. So I don't need to worry about it being undercooked. So really what I want to do is get it in there, get it start cooking and browning. And then as it starts to brown, we'll add some other ingredients. I also have some red bell pepper here. I'm going to put a little bit of that in. Red bell pepper gives it some nice color. And now I'm going to let the pan kind of do its work. So you could, if you wanted to, if you don't like the sausage, you could do this with shrimp, or you could do with crab meat if you wanted to fold like some nice jumbo lump crab meat in at the end. It would still be considered Southern style. I like the smokiness, is kind of what I'm going for. And our goal today and what we're doing is all the dishes kind of complement each other so that our goal is to make, out of all the dishes that we do today, a final plate to show you how well they go together. So we're just going to keep that moving. A little bit of chopped garlic. Gotta have garlic.
Chef Tom, a question for you. Is the chopped garlic in the can, the minced garlic that comes in the can already chopped, is it just as good or effective as fresh garlic?
No. It's okay. It's kind of pickled in order for it to be shelf stable, and it's in a juice, it's in a brine. I mean, it'll work, it'll add garlic. It's not quite the same flavor as taking like whole garlic cloves that are peeled and putting them in a food processor, and you're going to get different strength. So good question though, Cindy. Yes, a lot of people use that because it's convenient. All right. Starting to get a little bit of color here. So I couldn't find fresh corn, so I have frozen corn and I have frozen edamame. You may or may not know this. Frozen vegetables are blanched or partially cooked. You could actually thaw the corn out, sprinkle it over a salad, and eat it, and you'd be fine because it's such a small vegetable. Same with the edamame, if that's what you wanted to do. So they're not going to take a lot of cooking time. So once we put them in, we want to get them good and hot. I'm going to try to extract some more of my andouille flavor here. So I'm going to put my edamame in. Get that going. Like I said, that's not going to take long. I'm going to add my corn. Again, this is thawed out just a little bit. As it heats up, it's going to make a little bit of a liquid. I want to stir that up. Get it going. That smells good. Now, again, if you're not big on the andouille, you could do this with bacon too. You could actually take raw bacon and cook it up, pull it out, use the fat from the bacon to saute all your vegetables and start the process. All right, gonna get that hot. Now what I have here is a little bit of kosher salt and some coarse ground black pepper. You want to season it. It brings out all the other flavors. All right, and at the very end, I'm going to put about a cup of cream in it, heavy cream. So this together with the butter is going to cook down. And as the cream cooks down a little bit, it's going to get a little thicker. And it's going to make a sauce for your succotash. So I don't know if anybody's ever heard of makchu. It's a New Orleans type dish. This is similar to it. Makchu is basically a corn dish. It doesn't have the beans in it, but it does have peppers, onions. Some people, and they sometimes put crab or shrimp in it. And there's always, and it's heat, and there's a little bit of cream. So this is a version, a Native American style version of that type of dish.
Chef Tom, question, is that usually served over rice or over any
It's
side?
actually, you could serve it as an entree. You could serve it over rice. This can be an entree. It can be a side dish. It can be, you can make it your main meal. It's very versatile. You have to remember too, corn is a starch. So you kind of already have your starch in the dish. All right, and you have two proteins in here, edamame and then andouille. So I'm going to move this over to this burner and let this cook just a little bit so it can reduce. Chef Steve is going to take the next recipe and he's going to do a Three Sisters stew.
Good afternoon, everybody.
It's all good.
So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to make a Three Sisters stew. Start with some oil. While that heats up, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Three Sisters stew. Three Sisters is what the Native Americans used as their base for almost everything that they use. Us here, we use, as culinarians, we use a thing called mirepoix, which contains celery, onions, and carrots. That's like our base for a lot of different items that we do. You can use those for soups. You can use it for entrees. It's very versatile. It's very similar how the Native Americans did a lot of their cuisine. So their three sisters consist of corn, some kind of squash, and beans. And a lot of them have a lot of protein that's involved in it all. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of garlic first. Throw in some onion. And we're doing a little twist on a traditional, what a traditional three sister stew would become. Native Americans were big hunters. So they hunted all kinds of they hunted off the land. They did rabbits, squirrels, all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that they hunted was venison. So we got some venison here that I'm gonna throw in our dish. The biggest thing with the stew is having all your protein and all your vegetables the same size. Because what happens as you cook it, they all cook evenly. So I'm throwing that in with my garlic and onion to get them nice and brown. And to start the cooking process for the meat. Now you want to start with your protein first because you're getting some nice color on that and you're rendering it down and getting all that juice and you're cooking it at the same time. So in doing some research in terms of the three sisters alone, they used what was known as maize back then. It was just one of their main staple crops that they use all the time. And it actually has protein in it that they used a lot in all their cooking. Same goes with the beans. They use their like I said, they cooked all off the land. So they made their beans in the soil because it had so much, their soil was nice and rich. And then the squash, same thing. They cooked it all off the land. So now that this is going, see from the camera here, the color turned like a light brownish. Thing with venison, it's very gamey compared to what like a ground beef or possibly like a roast, a beef roast would taste like. So it has a little bit more flavor. All right. Sure can. So as you see, it already started to render down a little bit, and I have some juices in here from my venison. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to add some.
Thank you.
Some green pepper that are about like an inch cut by an inch. Some butternut squash. Black beans. Corn. And some diced tomatoes. And you want the juice from those tomatoes as well. And I have 2 cups of water here. So as this cooks, it's a nice and vibrant stew, and it's nice and hearty. And when I mean it's nice and hearty, is it has a lot of substance to it. Doesn't have a whole lot of liquid to it. A lot of the Native Americans cooked their meals in this kind of way. They did one pot meals because they would just throw everything in and leave it go and let it cook down. You get the succotash done? Chef Tom was able to finish the succotash. All right.
Okay. So the succotash is, you want to have a little bit of the broth, the cream broth in the bottom. So this is kind of how it presents, but it's nice and hearty, creamy. Smells good.
It
too.
does smell good. So I'm also going to add some salt and pepper to my stew. I have a combination of spices here. Has some chili powder, some barbecue spice, some cumin. I made that mixture earlier this morning. I'm gonna throw it in with my stew. Now this is gonna take a little bit of time, so we're gonna come back to this in a little bit. We're gonna transition to our next recipe. So I'm gonna move this to the back.
All righty. So Cindy told you were going to get a catfish dish today, so we are going to do a catfish dish today.
Yeah, next time I'll check with the chefs.
It's all good. Actually, it's an exciting dish. I'm glad you suggested it. Okay. So our catfish dish is actually a pine nut crusted catfish. It's a Native American dish. Of course, the Native Americans inland lived off a lot of freshwater fish, trout, catfish, things that were available. Their breading consisted of some type of nut breading, maybe some flour, cornmeal. And so what I did is I roasted off some pine nuts in the oven for about 4 to 5 minutes till they were golden brown. It kind of releases the oils. And then I pulsed them in a food processor to make them fine. I'm going to add that, some all-purpose flour, like a 1/4 cup, my pine nuts, and my cornmeal. I'm going to make a breading. So I'm just going to mix that up. Just going to use my hands here real quick because we're going to cook this. And then my seasoning is kosher salt, a little bit of cayenne, and some ground cumin. And we're going to mix that up.
Chef, a question for you. Do you bread your fish first with egg?
No.
You coat it?
We're going to
You
dip
coat
it
it.
right into here.
So you don't, do you ever coat your chicken?
In egg?
Yes.
Yes, if I'm going to do a traditional style of breading, which would be like flour, egg wash, breadcrumbs, it makes it a little heavier if you're going to deep fry it. But we're going to pan fry this. So really all we need is a coating. So it would just be like if you floured your fish. Okay. Always,
Right, but some people, when flouring their fish, I think that's the question. When you flour your fish, you coat it with egg, or is there a rule of thumb that says if you're frying it, you don't?
you can if you want to. When I was actually taught how to make pan fried fish. I dipped it in milk and then right into flour. The idea was to get the flesh wet so that the flour would stick. If you can also do fish where there's actually a French method called français, where you actually do the reverse of that, where you flour your, like flounder français is very popular. You flour your flounder and you dip it into straight egg, and then it goes into hot oil and it makes like an egg batter.
Very interesting. Okay.
So there are different ways to do it, but what
But
we're doing here, right? So today what we're doing is we're relying on the moisture of the fish to adhere to this, and we're gonna make sure our oil is hot. That's one of the tricks. So I was been heating up my pan. So we want to make sure the oil's hot. So when it goes in, it coats it and it doesn't come off in the oil. So,
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because the egg really, I thought, came as a connector, a bond agent, if you will. So when you do it without the egg, then does the batter hold to the fish itself?
well, I'm not really making a batter. I'm making a coating.
Okay.
So in pan frying, you want about an 1/8 of an inch of oil in the bottom of your skillet. So deep frying means it's submerged. Pan frying, you want a little bit more than just a coating if you were sauteing. So I think to answer your question, this is kind of what I'm looking for. I don't know if you can see that. So it's coated enough. Okay.
Okay.
And once I know that this is hot, I'm going to go right into the oil. So when you do pan fry something like this, there's a fish, and fish is called bone side and skin side. So if you've ever caught your own fish, bone side is what you lay down first. Okay. And bone side, if you don't know what bone side, skin side always kind of has the darker, little bit of darkness to it. That's where the skin was on. Bone side is going to have the center down the line. So this was attached to the bones. So to do our presentation, bone side always goes in your oil first, because that's the side that's going to be served upward. So you want to make sure it goes into the oil good and hot. And I make sure I have a pan that has enough space that I don't crowd. You don't want to crowd, because if you start crowding your fish, they get nervous. Now, what happens is you put too much protein in there, the oil temperature drops, and it actually starts to steam it instead of frying it. So we're going to sear this on both sides. We're going to put it in the oven and let it finish. There we go. Nice coating, no egg, just your breading. Now, if you had to do this, a lot of this, say you had a lot of portions of this to do, you might be able to get 2 batches out of one set of oil. Then you might need to start with fresh oil, because as the longer it cooks, what'll happen is the particles will start to get dark and burn, then it sticks to your fish. Give me a pair of tongs.
Mhm.
All right, nice color. Smells good. And catfish is pretty forgiving as far as how you handle it. There we go. We got some good color there. It's a sturdy fish. It's not delicate like flounder or cod. You can kind of move it around, where something like an ocean whitefish is very delicate. Catfish, because it's freshwater, it's the flesh is a little thicker. Okay, so as we get these done, I'm just going to set them up on our tray. I sprayed the tray with a little bit of food release, just so it doesn't stick. And this was one large fillet that I bought at the grocery store. I cut it in 4 portions. It would be hard to eat. I think it was like a 3/4 of a pound fillet. So, all right. Very simple. We're going to put that in the oven to finish off. Chef Steve is going to show you how to make acorn bean bread.
Smells great, Chef Tom.
Does smell good.
All right. So like Chef Tom mentioned, we're gonna make some acorn bean bread. All right, I'm gonna move all my stuff over here so it's easier to see. I'm gonna start with some all-purpose flour and some chickpea flour. We couldn't find acorn flour, so a substitute of that is you can use chickpea flour. I have some sugar, salt, and baking powder. Starting with all my dry ingredients first, and I'm just going to whisk those together. Get them all incorporated. All right. Just gonna set that aside for a second. I'm gonna move on to our wet ingredients. We have one egg that was beaten earlier. Got 1 cup of milk. And some oil. You want to whisk those together. Get them all incorporated. And what we're going to do is add our wet ingredients to our dry ingredients. All right. I'm going to bring this back over here. I'm going to pour these right in here. And I'm just going to fold ever so slightly to get everything all incorporated. You want to make sure you scrape the sides of your bowl as you continue to go. And when you're done mixing this, it's going to come out to be a little thick, and that's okay, because we're making a bread. All right. All of our ingredients are just about incorporated. And you can see how it's got nice and thick. Usually bread batters get to this consistency. All right. Now that it came all together, I'm gonna fold in a cup of beans. Traditionally, you can use brown beans, is what they suggest, but we did black beans today, which is just as fine.
It almost looked like chocolate chips for a chocolate chip dough.
It really does. It really does. It could be a nice surprise if someone's not expecting it to be chocolate chips. All right. So I have it all incorporated. You want your beans all mixed in your batter. And I got a small cake tin here, and you want to spray it heavily. Make sure it's nice and well greased. And I'm just going to put it right in my dish. All right. Use your spatula to spread it out so it coats the bottom. I don't have any up here, but you could put like saran wrap or plastic wrap down on top of this. Oh, thank you, Chef. I'll show you what I was talking about. So what you can do, you just press down lightly, and it gets your top layer nice and even. So as you can see, I pressed it down all nice and flat. I'm just going to take it right off. Flat, just like so. And we're going to throw this in the oven. You can throw it in a normal oven at 400 degrees for about a half an hour. Or we have a convention oven here, so we do that at 375 for about 25 minutes. Thank you, Chef. Any questions at all about the bean bread?
No, I don't see any in the chat.
All right.
Chef Steve,
Yes.
through the amazing act of television here, I found this loaf of bean bread.
I see.
So you can show them the finished
right.
product.
So I made this one this morning just to show what it would look like after the final product is complete.
Now, Chef Steve, how long did you bake this for?
I baked this one in a convention oven for 25 minutes.
On what was the heat, 425?
It was 375.
375.
375.
Now, is this your first time making this kind of bread?
Actually, it is. Yes. Yep.
Okay. Because everybody wants to know if you can cut into it and taste it and let us know how it tastes.
I mean, I can most certainly do that. I can most certainly do that. All right. Next, we're going to work on something. 1 second.
Yowzer. Okay. The next dish we're going to do, I'm very excited about. In my grocery store travels, I discovered this squash at Acorns, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Chef Steve's hooking me up with a mixer. So this is called a roasted candy squash. So this is what it looked like before I cut it in half. So they weigh about, I'm going to say 8 to 9 pounds. They were actually developed by the Cherokee Nation and mostly grown in Georgia. Like I said, the Native Americans were master gardeners. So if you cut it in half, this is kind of what it looks like. All right, kind of has like a butternut squash look to it, but it's very creamy and it roasts up beautifully. I'm going to show you what I did. All I did was cut it in half, scoop the seeds out, put a little bit of vegetable oil on the bottom, sprayed my sheet pan, and then I roasted it for probably about an hour because I want to get some caramelization in the flavor. And I wanted to make sure the skin would come off easily. So, but isn't that an amazing looking product? When the first time you see it, I think I've never seen anything like that, but it's beautiful, easy to work with. So the finished product, I just kind of threw this back in the oven because I roasted it this morning to just warm it up so that the skin releases easily. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a mashed roasted squash to go with the rest of our dish. It's a roasted candy squash. So the skin, I want to show them how to do it.
Mhm.
It's hot. It's hot, Tom. As I roasted it, the skin actually comes off very easily. It's a very thin skin. So the goal is to get the flesh. So it reminds me of a sweet potato.
Yeah.
Very much so. So you could probably anything
Well, that's
that
exactly
you do
how it
with
looked.
Pardon me?
It looks exactly like a sweet potato, look-wise, color-wise,
Yes,
and even texture. It looks like it's along that same vein.
Yep. But it's a squash. But it's beautiful. Smells very good. So we're going to get the skin off of here, and then we're going to mash it with some other ingredients to finalize the last part of our dish here. I need a spatula.
Mhm.
So there we go. Nice and easy. Kind of steamed it in its own juices, just like if you would do a spaghetti squash, how you put it cut side down. This is the same theory. We're just going to put our wire whip attachment on here. We want to kind of mix this up and get it going. Lots of fibers. So I have a little bit of ground cinnamon and some ground nutmeg we're going to put in here. Some of the sweet spices. A little bit of salt and pepper because you need some salt and pepper. And just a little bit of heavy cream. You want to taste it, always have a tasting spoon on hand so you can taste it before. That's good stuff. Tastes just like a sweet potato. Last, just a touch of honey. Doesn't need much because it's already a little sweet.
And is the honey just for the taste?
Yep. If you don't want the sugar in it, you could skip it. Gonna put a little bit in a piping bag for my plate. And the rest I'm gonna dish up. Nice and creamy. I'm gonna take, where are my spices? I'm just gonna dust it with some of the spices that we put in there. There we go. Ta-da. Okay. It's very light and creamy. And just to give you a price, ballpark price, this squash cost, I used half of it. I think it was $8.96. So you could get a lot out of it. So you could do one for the upcoming holiday if you wanted to, very easily.
Okay.
So Chef Steve's going to present his stew. And then we'll do our final dish.
All right. So as we did the bread and the squash, my soup continued to cook on the burner back here behind me. As you can see, it got a little thicker and it cooked down a lot more. So I got a lot more liquid in my stew. And it's also very, like I was saying, it's very hearty with all the ingredients that are in it. I think total cooking time was about like 20 minutes. I'm gonna add some cilantro into the stew. We're gonna plate some up.
Yep.
Yep.
Good.
Very bright and colorful.
And it looks good. So the chefs are coming to, this is their final dish. So if anybody has any last minute questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat as they're wrapping up their final dish. Chef Steve, that looks really good.
Thank you, Cindy.
Is this your first time doing this soup?
Absolutely. Yep. Very first time.
See, Chef Tom, I've caused you guys to experiment.
We absolutely love doing this show. It expands our knowledge a lot off of what we already know. And I can speak for myself, Chef Tom. I'm sure you can speak for yourself as well, but I know I really enjoy it every time we get to do one. And just garnish with some cilantro back right on top. All right. I think we just have one more thing, right, Chef Tom?
Yep, we're going to do a presentation.
Yep.
So what I did was I took my roasted candy squash, put it in the pastry bag, and I just piped a little bit in the middle of this bowl. And I'm going to take some of our succotash. We're just going to kind of do a ring around the rosy here. I'm going to surround it just like that. And then I have the finished product of what the catfish came out, how it looks. So we're going to use that. And Chef Steve's going to cut some of the acorn bread for our presentation. So we're just going to put some of this on there. It's going to cut a small wedge. Too big.
Like right there?
There. Yep. Okay, we're gonna put our acorn bread, kind of set it up right there like that, so that we have a complete Native American meal. Pine nut crusted catfish, roasted candy squash, andouille succotash, and acorn bean bread. You see that?
Is the BLT show next?
It's the BLT show next.
Yes, I don't. Is
I
that
don't think so.
is that an inside joke or did I
think
miss
it is.
something?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know if you can get a close up of that, guys.
There you go.
That's good. So a nice presentation should always have a little bit of height, a little bit of contrast and flavors. All these dishes
Beautiful.
actually go together into one dish.
Beautiful. Now, is there any dish on there today that you guys have done before? Either one of you, or are they all experimental dishes first time around?
First time around.
First time around.
Wow. Amazing.
That's what makes it fun. No, we kind of had an idea what we wanted to do. I had never worked with this squash, so I wasn't sure how it was going to come out. The stew, it's stovetop braising, so we figured, we knew what we were doing there. The acorns bread, it's hard to find acorn meal, so we substituted the chickpea flour for that, which is actually a kind of interesting, weird, similar shape. The succotash, I wanted to do it because I like the idea of adding the andouille and making it either an entree or a side. And the catfish, I like the whole idea of the pine nut crust. So yes, it was fun to do.
Sweet. Any more questions? Any more questions? And I guess the BLT show will not be next for that question in the chat, but we will be back on November 19th. And that show is going to be Thanksgiving with a twist, where Chef Tom and Chef Steve will pull out some tricks that we can do during Thanksgiving time. I'm not quite sure what all they'll cover yet. I'm sure they have some things up their sleeves, but be prepared. Again, November 19th, 1 p.m. And that episode is Thanksgiving with a twist. So come hungry, come with your notepad and pen. I'm not sure if they're going to pull out anything from the recipe book. That is a possibility. But if not, they may do something new. As you just saw today, this was their first time doing these dishes, and there's always a first for everything. So not only are they expanding and experimenting, they'll also be being creative, and we appreciate that. So thank you all so much for being here. See you November 19th, 1 p.m. Thanksgiving with a twist. Chef Tom, Chef Steve, any last words, anything else you want to share about the gala that's happening?
The gala is tonight. Chef Patty and her culinary students are, I'm sure, in total control of that. You'll be excited with what you get. I do want to plug the cookbook another time. If you're looking for a Christmas gift for somebody, it's a great Christmas gift. There's recipes in there you won't find anywhere else. You can get it through the bookstore. I don't know if anybody's on the call from the bookstore, you can put the link in there. But when we unveiled it last year, it was around the first week of December, and it flew off the shelves. And we had heard a lot of great feedback from the people that got it as gifts. So for that cookbook of person, or that foodie in your family, this is a great idea. Right. Thank you very much for coming today. We enjoyed as always.
Thank you. Right.